Hello and welcome back to Racing Weekly, a podcast and YouTube show brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. I'm Steve Ryder, stepping in once again in the host chair for Rishi, and it's my great pleasure to be joined by friend of the show, Tanya Stevenson, and making his Racing Weekly debut, Anthony Ennis.
Hi Steve,
how are you?
Yeah, good form, thank you.
Excellent. For those that obviously don't know, SkySports racing presenter as well as a racecourse commentator. I remember the call earlier on this year with Joe Anderson and performing his heroics. Was it Plumpton?
Plumpton it was, on Sussex National Day. It was incredible. Yeah, that was. I'm hoping that gets a ride of the season, which I think it should do. I think it's still probably just in front at the moment.
Yeah, I think it snuck in just at the start of January, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. It was one of those races where you commentate on think, and then as the race went on, you start to think he might win this, and then I think I need to get a big line ready for this. I need to sort of think of something quickly to throw in at the end, and then it just became reality. It was extraordinary.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And Tans, I think you were at Derby Day on Saturday.
Yeah, absolute treat. It was fantastic. As a day as a whole, throwing up the shape of the rest of the season, it did us proud. Because it's not just the winners you have to look at Epsom. You have to take the meeting as a whole. The course itself is its own issue. Because what it throws up, and do you forgive the runners? Of course you do, for them not acting. And there was quite a few that stood out that did not like Epsom, but that comes with the territory, and I can't wait to see them on a track that does suit them. Yeah, and obviously in the build-up to the race, we were saying, it might be a substandard Derby, questions around City of Troy, but yeah, I think we've definitely got a star performer there. Great to see him back to his best. Certainly was good to see him, but and obviously everyone will run out of superlatives for Aidan himself. But when you look at the Derby as a whole, it's going to prove, I sense, a really strong race, because there's a few in behind that will make the decision to drop back in trip. There's a couple that might be, you look to the future, to the end of the season. I'm thinking of Los Angeles. He's just such a big unit that he is still green as they come.
Yeah, so he could just relax before the race. How good would he be? Because he gets himself in such a lather, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He sweats up so badly. If they could get him to calm down in the prelims, he could be very good.
Yeah, definitely. Before we get more into the Derby and racing recap, Anthony, just a kind of a horse to follow for the season so far that's really taken your eye.
Okay, there's one that really caught my eye. Obviously, doing the commentaries on course, sometimes you commentate, you think, wow, that was something special. I was at Doncaster a couple of weeks ago now, I think it was the Saturday night. A horse called Kind of Blue, who's by Blue Point, won. James Fanshawe trained horse. Danny Muscat rode him. He won at Kempton, so he won his debut. Obviously turf debut, and they really backed the Gosden horse there, Ananda, who was heavily backed. I think a Lady Bamford horse got heavily punted in as if that she was going to win, and she'd already won a race. But Kind of Blue just tracked the pace. I remember Ananda went in front, but Danny Muscat, I remember thinking too, he hasn't moved it. He was absolutely, you could see how you took a pull about a furlong and a half out, just tracked Ananda through, angled out, and then just a little shake of the reins. This horse quickened. He's in the Commonwealth Cup, Steve. That might be maybe a bridge too far. I think he's about 25-1 for the Commonwealth Cup, but look, sometimes you see something and think, wow, I remember I saw Baid win at Newmarket. I called his second race. I thought, wow, that was pretty good. I'm not saying he's going to go on to do what Baid done, but I think he's going to win a group race, certainly. Whether it's the Commonwealth Cup or not, I'm not too sure. But yeah, Kind of Blue, very impressive at Doncaster last month.
Yeah, Blue Point having a great time as a stallion this year as well. Tans, same to you?
You might have seen her in her first run. This is Miss Rascal. She's a little firecracker, bless her. She wasn't so much in her first run at the Rolling Mile. She completely fluffed her line. She didn't come out of the stalls, and she would have been ignored coming into her second run off the back of that, unless you'd have watched the race at Newmarket again and again and again. Paul and Oliver Cole decided to go to Ascot with her for a second run, and goodness me, a different kind of scenario where she missed a break at Newmarket and kind of swerved and got bumped out of the stalls. At Ascot, it flew out of the stalls, and thereafter nothing got near her. She be interesting where she goes next. I suppose they are thinking of Royal Ascot. They've been there and been successful before, and hopefully she probably will excel. She'll need the good or good to firm ground, but she's one that perhaps will not come back if she hits the front. If she hits the stalls right, she won't come back to her rivals. She's great.
Yeah, and the Coles will definitely have some two-year-olds to be able to compare against as well. They've had a great season so far with those two-year-olds.
Oh, they've had a great season full stop. Yeah. But yes, they'll have plenty to compare. And I was intrigued that they haven't run her again since. They've kept the temptation, but perhaps she's hard to contain at the moment because she is obviously just a really raw two-year-old. So and they just don't want to unleash her speed until later on, mid-June.
Yeah. And we'll touch on one of the Coles probably stable staff later on in Racing Recap. So there's only one place to start on Racing Recap this week, and it has to be with the Derby. City of Troy bouncing back to form and providing Aidan O'Brien with a 10th victory in the race. Before we get into how high up that chart of Aidan O'Brien Derby winners, Tans, let's just talk about the performance, because I was really impressed.
You had to be really impressed. Ryan Moore was just at his phenomenal best, but he'd showcased that the day before. We'll get into that race, the Coronation Cup. But much was made beforehand because, was it on the Thursday, they did the draw in the town centre, and bang, out came stall 1 for City of Troy. And that was Negative City. Only Oath and Ezeliya had won in recent times from stall 1. So how on earth were you going to win from stall 1? You've loaded onto that was the poor run in the 2,000 guineas. But then we have to remember what a sensation City of Troy was. It was a 2-year-old career. And then you had to think of the dynamic of the race as a whole. Coming into the race, it wasn't often, I think you're going back quite a few years before Aidan had gone through the 1,000, 2,000, the Irish guineas, and even not winning the Oaks to come to here as well. There were so many negatives pouring on the likes of City of Troy, yet the faith held in him was immense. Well, I mean, there was some sort of gamble on Ambient Friendly going into the race as well, closing into post time. And what we saw in the race itself, coming around the Tattenham corner, the manoeuvre by Ryan, can only be accentuated by the ability of the horse. You could have made your manoeuvre on quite a few of those, and the ability of the horse needs then to take you through and travel so comfortably. And yeah, I mean, it was just a phenomenal performance then. Ambient Friendly sort of confirmed the gamble. Travelled so well. You just have to feel sorry in the fact that poor old Pat Dobbs was dislodged because Voyage took a wrong step out the stalls. We will never know where Voyage was placed in the race, but what Voyage did was kind of hamper our thoughts on how good both City and Troy and Ambient Friendly were, and hopefully we'll see Voyage again soon. But both of them are excellent, exceptional perhaps as well, but we just needed the loose horse to be out the way.
Yeah, it didn't actually affect it too much.
No.
You kind of did worry down the final straight whether he'd then cut across and get in the way. But I thought that was the most impressive part. I think you touched on, I think the most impressive sectional was from 4 to 3 for City of Troy to put in that acceleration to be able to then reach the leaders. But then he was going away at the finish. You kind of saw him change his legs and really power away. And it was stereotypical of him and Ryan Moore not being able to put him up at the finish.
Yeah, it was a brilliant ride, wasn't it? And a great performance by this horse. I mean, I was a huge doubter coming into Saturday. I must confess, after I watched the Guineas run again on Saturday morning, thought, where's a Derby win coming from this horse? But just like August Rodan 12 months ago, similar flat run at Newmarket, brilliant run at Epsom. The run he got on the inside was extraordinary. I mean, if you stop the race 2.5 out, there's only one winner, isn't there? Ambiente Friendly. Rab Havlin was the only jockey who hadn't moved a muscle. I mean, Ryan was going for City of Troy, making ground. He still thought, hang on, he's not even asked Ambiente Friendly yet, but City of Troy found so much, was well on top at the line. And looking back, I mean, Aidan O'Brien saying again, he's his best Derby winner. That's a hell of a statement, isn't it? You think Galileo rated, 132 when he won the Derby. I think he got 134 rating after he won the King George. He was that good. I mean, he had other good Derby winners. High Chaparral was a Breeders' Cup winner, got 130 rating. Even horses like Australia and Camelot were very good Derby winners. But Aidan saying this horse is top of the tree is some statement. Yeah, and the form was there for his 2-year-old days. There was just so much different because they held him up. He'd never been held up in a race before, and the extended trip. But it all seemed to bring out an improvement, which wasn't guaranteed on breeding, let alone running style. Obviously, made all in the Dewhurst. So. Yeah, Justify still a bit of an unknown, isn't he? Obviously, he's signed a lot of winners in America. And Aidan was adamant, wasn't he, this horse would stay 1.5 miles. I mean, many people couldn't see it and thought, was he going to end up running back over 1 mile or even 7 furlongs later in the season? But no, he stayed 1.5 miles really well. And where he goes next is going to be a great question, isn't it? I mean, you'd obviously think they were talking about the Travers, aren't they, at Saratoga? Yeah. I mean, the Arc would be an obvious end-of-season target for him. But, so many big clashes to look forward to now, Steve, as well. I'd love to see him up against the French Derby winner, and more about him, I'm sure, later on. And also, obviously, economics, where does he fit into it as well? Didn't run at Epsom, but he'd fancy himself, wouldn't he, as the best over 10 furlongs or even 1.5 miles. Yeah, some fallout with Bet365 after the race.
They went 8-1 for the Eclipse. Now that's been slashed into 4-1 as his next start. Also 5-1 favourite for the Arc. But there seems to be a bit of an itch to scratch, doesn't there, with dirt? So the Travers could be on the agenda, Tom.
Yeah, that's in August, why not? They're really keen to go to America and Saratoga for the dirt and sort of kind of take that little challenge on, and you can't go against them, can you? Really? You cannot go against anything they can do. They're just miracle workers. And City of Troy, with that sort of acceleration that we've seen, and they'd have gone through the careers and the wins of all the horses that have gone into the Travers before and seen where that perhaps they could sit, and they'd be thinking of the tactics, and they'd be watching now previous runnings of the race. And we saw how the horse picked up. That's going to be no issue. And I mean, looking at the race itself, you mentioned the Eclipse. I don't think that City of Troy will go to the Eclipse. I think, but then I could be wrong. I think that's a Dancing Gemini kind of race. Sitting there, come and win me. Just watching Dancing Gemini in his own little bubble of performance. If you watched him coming around Tattenham Corner, he was way back, and he expended all his energy getting to, I think it was about third place at one point, coming down the home straight, and he just had used up his energy by then, and he faded out to about fifth or sixth. But watching his acceleration in his own lane saw to me, oh, come to Sandown. Please come to Sandown. That was just what you need to pick up at Sandown for me. Another horse that was an eye catcher in the race was Dear a Mile, and people have grabbed hold of Jim, Mr. Crowley, and asked how did he feel in the race, and he said, oh, he was so green, he's messed the start up. And looking at those were both Dancing Gemini and Dear a Mile showed some good sectionals coming down the home straight against City of Troy and Ambient Friendly. So they're the ones perhaps that to go to future races. I mean, I think Dancing Gemini, and they'll be thinking that because we saw that acceleration in France with Dancing Gemini.
Yeah, I think Dancing Gemini is definitely going to come back to 10 furlongs.
Yeah.
I'd say Ambiente Friendly would be a likely runner in the Eclipse. They obviously dropped Environment Friend back as a 3-year-old and won it in 1991. I think both Dear a Mile and Ancient Wisdom will probably be likely to go up in trip. Probably the Ledger would be an obvious target for both of those later on in the season. I think Los Angeles, I think he'd be really interested in the Irish Derby.
Irish Derby's his race, isn't it? Yeah.
Definitely. It was interesting in the preliminaries because Aidan O'Brien likes saddling his horses right in the middle of the parade ring. And Euphoric, very relaxed on his way. Los Angeles got really worked up being saddled, kind of drew gasps from the crowd as he reared up, tried to kick Aidan, but as soon as he then started walking around again, he calmed down. But then again at the start showed slightly wayward tendencies, sweated up, didn't really reluctant to go in the stalls. But I thought that was a really good performance from a colt that would definitely be suited by the Curragh, I thought. Yeah,
he looks a proper mile and a half horse, doesn't he? Whereas some of the others do look like they would have dropped back to 10. I think Curragh long straight would suit him. I think at one point I thought, is he going to go in the stalls? I think he was almost down to his last chance, wasn't he? He was getting that severe. So they need to try and get him to relax. I'm sure Aidan will work his magic on him, though. But you'd imagine with City of Troy unlikely to go to the Curragh, then that race would be there for him. I thought the Andrew Boarding horses both ran well. Sadati in particular. He just got ahead of Dancing Gemini late on. And even Bellum Justin as well. I can see him winning a good race this year, perhaps over 10 as well. He weakened a furlong out. And Asheen did say afterwards that he thinks a mile and a quarter might be his trip as well. So there's a few horses that were perhaps non-stayers in behind. Ancient Wisdom was perhaps the disappointment of the race. Obviously, he wouldn't have been their first. I think he was probably the third string, really, wasn't he? But obviously, unfortunately, what happened to Hidden Laws, sadly, at Chester, and obviously the horse that won at Sandown didn't get there either. But I thought he was a bit disappointing. But otherwise, it did look strong. Dare a Mile as well. You'd want to see him again over a mile and a half, wouldn't you, after that run? That was a big run from him.
Yeah, I think Ancient Wisdom would have preferred the softer ground, but he was probably still beaten further.
It just looked like it lacks a bit of a gear change. It happened at York as well in the Dante when they quickened. He seemed to lack that sort of ability to sort of go with the faster horses. I'm not sure what they're going to do with him next. I'm not sure where he's going to go.
Yeah, abilities to go the gallop definitely wasn't something that Ezeliya suffered with in the Oaks. I was really impressed, and if you'd have backed the Tarns, I don't think you really had a moment's doubt.
You didn't, and well, if you'd watched her in the Salsabill Stakes, where she came up alongside Purple Lily, this is the race before she came to the Oaks. She was a little bit like Los Angeles in his respective trial before, and she needed all of that distance before she sort of conquered Purple Lily. Now, coming into the Oaks itself, goodness me, Epsom became her track. I didn't know whether it would be. Her breeding says that she's got relations to Ezeliya and Estimate, so they're cup horses. So stamina wasn't going to be an issue. It's whether she was going to be quick enough to lay up with them. Quick enough, goodness me. Oh, she came round Tattenham Corner. She thrived round there, and Chris Hayes sort of sent her to the front quite early. And off she went, and she was really, really impressive over the mile and a half. I wouldn't have thought any further, known by her breeding, no further's not going to be an issue either. She's, a classic project by Dermot Weld, and it was a precision sort of raid by him. There was all this 43 years, but he hasn't waited 43 years. That's why they say wait. He's not had that many runners, and the fact that he decided to run Ezeliya was, there you go. She's really special, and I can't wait for her to go. I sense that it's arc for her.
With the Aga Khan influence, you'd imagine. So 12-1 with Bet365, she is for that. And obviously, as you all know, 3-year-old fillies obviously get all the allowances in that race and have a good record in it. Like you said, this Anthony became Dermot Weld's 25th British or Irish Classic, obviously probably well known, obviously recently with Harzan winning the Derby.
Yeah, it's amazing. When I said that obviously Blue Wind won it in 1981, I was thinking, how old was Dermot Weld? Was he training when he was like 20 or something? It's like trying to work out the 43 years difference. But yeah, that's some gap, isn't it, between winning that race again. But no, she was brilliant. The turn of foot she showed. And of course, she kind of dispelled that Dubarwi's can't win at Epsom theory as well. First and second dance sequence also by Dubarwi, so that was kind of put to bed as well, which was good. But no, it was never in doubt, was it? The favourite was a bit disappointing. Ylang, the one they backed, and she just ran a bit flat, didn't she? She didn't get in a great position early on. I remember watching the race thinking down Tattenham Hill, Ryan's not really wants to be here anyway, and I don't think she was good enough in the end. Second horse ran really well, dance sequence, perhaps just got outstayed by the winner. David Minussier was absolutely delighted, as he should be, with War Chimes run as well in third. That was a huge run, and he's got big plans, I think, for her overseas coming up. Fourth horse, the Rafe Beckett horse, ran well as well. You got to me, but no, the winner, she looks very good. And it's great to have I think we had a good Derby winner and a good Oaks winner as well at the weekend. Yeah,
I think you've got enough in behind in the Derby to think that they could target them. I'm not so sure, really, with the fillies in behind, whether it's going to be that stronger of a race in behind. I think Ylang did have an excuse. I think she returned lame after, and she looked beaten even before the track would become an issue. Obviously, even early on in the race, you kind of looked at her and thought, well, hang on a minute, you're not travelling here, is she?
No, as you said, I think Aidan has come out and said that she has finished lame. However, looking back to Ezeliya, it's not. I think she's just in a stratosphere above them anyway. So normally you're looking for traction in the horses behind to find your rating and find your performance, but she's so lightly raced anyway coming into the race. She'd had that run in, as I mentioned, in the Salsabil Stakes and beat Purple Lily, as it were, and there was enough doubt to see her price as it was, and yet even so she was backed suddenly into second favourite. She's something special, I think, Ezeliya, because of her versatility. The expectation is that she's has plenty laden with stamina, but beyond the mile and a half. But she showed Epsom. She's got acceleration as well, which is a great attribute to have, isn't it?
Yeah, could obviously have a break. Prix Vermeil onto the Arc would be a logical step. Do you think she could kind of reach those heights?
I'm not sure if she'd be good enough to win the Arc. I mean, I think if it was a normal year of sort of 3-year-old colts, she might, but I think we might be an exceptional year, mightn't we? I mean, we've got City of Troy, we've mentioned. I mean, Look to Vega was brilliant, I thought, in the French Derby. I mean, if it was like a substandard year of the boys, then, yeah, I think she'd have a chance. But I just think she might be taking on some really good colts this year. And, of course, we've not mentioned the older horses yet either, have we? No. So it's going to be tough for her. But I think there's definitely another Group 1 to be won with her this season, certainly. Yeah,
one of those older colts is Luxembourg, who, was an impressive winner of the Coronation Cup under a brilliant front-running ride from Ryan Moore. He's now won a Group 1 at 2, 3, 4 and 5, so he's been some horse. I hadn't quite realised until I went back through his form. Obviously, relatively lightly raced. I'd still say the mile and a half trip is still a question mark. It was obviously a bit of a crawl, and he sprinted and got away from Hamish, who is obviously a stayer. But I was impressed with the horse and obviously the ride.
Yeah, the ride was brilliant, wasn't it, on Luxembourg? He's one of those horses that you keep forgetting about, don't you? And then he sort of pops up again, doesn't he? And wins another Group 1, as you say. But he's a horse that I've never been able to get right, sort of trying to back him. I think I've always been on him when he hasn't won. So he's one of those frustrating horses. You know, one of those horses you just like never wins when you go for them, and then you ignore them. And like on Friday, I fancied Emily Upjohn, but she proved again what a tricky ride she is as well. And Kieran Schumacher got lambasted a bit for the ride, but I'm not sure it's his fault. I think she's just a difficult horse to handle. And I think Frankie Dettori was an absolute master at riding her, and obviously he's overseas these days. But the ride was brilliant on Luxembourg. I don't think it was the best ever Coronation Cup. I mean, Hamish is a good, solid Group 2 horse. He might be able to maybe win a Group 1 now. He's shown that form on Friday. Feed the Flame was a bit disappointing. He brought the French form in. And Time Lock probably isn't quite up to Group 1s at the moment. So, look, it wasn't a vintage Coronation Cup. It was a vintage ride, certainly, and Luxembourg deserved it.
Yeah, I like Anthony. Felt sorry for Kieran Schumacher. I felt he was the one jockey that tried to allow or not allow Ryan Moore to have an easy ride. But as a result, Emily Upjohn was a bit lit up, and it wasn't really the way to ride her.
No, and unfortunately, you can't have a second go at it.
No.
But Ryan rode the race of the weekend. Mind you, that might be debatable. There might be people speaking about Jamie's ride on Royal Scotsman, but Luxembourg was an absolute beaut. I backed Feed the Flame in the race. I thought the French form coming into the race, and the fact that Pascal Barry thought, oh, here's an opening. Here's an opening. But unfortunately, Feed the Flame fell down the I can't handle Epsom bracket, because it seemed to go up and down the camber like a zigzag. You'd like to have a microchip on it to see the actual path it took.
Yeah, he was all over the place, wasn't he?
You felt a little bit sorry, but even so, when going back to France, he's no doubt going to pick something nice up. But Hamish has run above itself, because only run previously in one ever Group 1, and that was against Kyprios. Yeah. So that's a little bit different pace taking on Luxembourg than taking on Kyprios. And Hamish has run an absolute belter. I think as much as Luxembourg was great, having his 11th, he was in his 11th Group 1, and he's won 4 of them. That's just phenomenal in its own chance. Hamish should be applauded, but of course we've got to wait for the ground to come right again to see Hamish again, and he'll be very, very tricky to beat when he comes out again. I was disappointed with Time Lock because I'd watched her at Ascot again and again and again in the fillies and mares, and I just thought the ability was there, and a winter would bring her on. Perhaps being at Epsom didn't help, and I'll give her another chance. She's certainly got so much potential. She's got a finishing kick, but she wasn't able to show it at Epsom.
No, with Luxembourg, I think the finishing percentage, I think it was something like 112% or something. I thought half a furlong out. I thought Hamish might actually be able to
I did as well.
past him. With regards to targets around Luxembourg, he's now 16-1 with Bet365 for the Prince of Wales Stakes. But apparently the King George is likely to be his next target. Obviously, they'll shift the pack around, won't they? They've got plenty of these middle distance horses. Yeah,
he's run. I think he's ran twice at Ascot without winning, but I thought he ran okay. I think he was second at the Royal Meeting last year, wasn't he?
Prince of Wales,
it's a hard race to win that, isn't it?
Yeah.
I still, even though he's won so many Group 1s, he's one of those horses you don't actually think is really sort of top notch sometimes, which is harsh on him because he's been in so many big races. He's been all around the world. He's been to Chartin, hasn't he? He ran quite well over there, didn't he? I think in the winter. Yeah. So he's well travelled. I see he's in the Eclipse as well. I'm not sure he's quite good enough to win that, but maybe a King George. Sometimes the King George seems to be the race that the big names miss out, doesn't it? For some reason, a lot of the big 3-year-olds don't tend to go there like they did years ago. So if it was a weaker King George, you could see him perhaps making the first 2 or 3 there.
Yeah, but definitely, it definitely earned some respect. Yeah, now on his CV is the Irish Champion States, the Tatterstall Gold Cup, and the Coronation Cup. So, yeah, incredible. Well done to Luxembourg. Princess Elizabeth II Stakes, Briege, a horse who deserved a win. Definitely hadn't been in the winners' enclosure since her debut, I don't think.
No, she's quite a character. Character full of ability, and she often hits the front about in her races. She'll hit the front at some point, and then you'll see others come through, and she's just unlucky. She sometimes finds 1 or 2 too good. Epsom proved to be a superb course for her because once again she hit the front quite early out, and she clung on from the gamble in the race, Chic Columbine, but I think we've seen, within the race, we have seen, I'm quite excited by a horse within that race who I felt really, really unlucky. One, because it's a horse between distances and you had to test it. There's a horse called Glimpse, trained by Rafe Beckett. She, for me, is going to be a little superstar. I'd watched her at York in the Michael Seeley, and Holly Doyle was on her then, and she came through gradually with a burst of acceleration in the last furlong, and I thought, oh, this is too short for you, and then was quite surprised to see Glimpse pop up at Epsom, because once again, the trip seemed too confined for her. She's out of a family with Regarde, so, and also Scope. So you can see Regarde's more of a miler, Scope's long distance. Where do you fit Glimpse? I think she's more on the long distance side, so Epsom proved too short for her, but goodness me, when Breege hit the front, of course everyone's eyes are either on Breege or on Chic Columbine. I was looking at Glimpse, and she didn't start to make her move or start running until the closing stages of the race, and the Hector had nowhere to go as much as you do at Epsom. She fell down the trap of the Epsom Goodwood scenario, and she's certainly one to look out for next time. She's a little superstar. Not to say that Breege and Chic Columbine are, but I think Glimpse will be going over further.
Yeah, one to keep an eye on. Then going forward, with regards to targets, Breege is now 12 to 1 with Bet365 for the Duke of Cambridge Stakes. And if they wanted to, Chic Columbine is 25 to 1 with Bet365 for the Coronation Stakes. Obviously, a 3-year-old getting those allowances in this race. But that Coronation Stakes could end up being a really good race, obviously, with multiple Guineas winners.
Yeah, I don't think she's quite that level, no. Chic Columbine. I think she's sort of Group 2, Group 3-ish. But I thought Royal Dress was really unlucky in this race. I watched it again this morning. Ben Cohen, I mean, he's a very good, very promising rider in Ireland, but I think he showed his lack of Epsom experience a little bit on Saturday. But how unlucky was she? I mean, she was just between the 3 and the 1. It was just nowhere to go. It was like this typical Epsom unlucky rides, wasn't it? I mean, Chic Columbine had an unlucky passage as well, but I thought Royal Dress was even more unlucky in the race. So I think she's definitely one to keep an eye on for James Tate as well. She wears a hood. She might not be that straightforward, but there's definitely a race to be won with her this season, a big race, I think, somewhere.
Yeah. One race to then look back on then, the Diamond Stakes. I mean, this was just a Jamie Spencer special, but not quite the Jamie Spencer special that we normally see.
I know, it's unfortunate. We sort of pigeonhole him as a hold-up, sitting quietly at the back.
I love him on a front run.
Oh, he's brilliant. He's superb on a front run. Royal Scotsman. I was looking back, his 2-year-old form was really good, wasn't it? I remember he won at Goodwood, didn't he? He looked very good. He was he was in the top 4 or 5 rated, I think, 2-year-olds trained in England that season. So he was a very good horse. Lost his way a little bit. Maybe last year, but no, it was a brilliant ride by Spencer, wasn't it? And he had them cooked, didn't he, from about 2 out. He had that little look, didn't he, under his arm about, he thought, he knows what he's doing here. And 1 or 2 of the others, there was just so many question marks about the likes of Highland Avenue and 1 or 2 others going into that race that he thought, it was one of those races I looked at them and thought, I don't fancy anything in this race. You could make a case out for so many, and there were so many doubts about the principles, but in the end, it was a brilliant ride. I thought Royal Dubai ran well in second, but might not be the best ever Diamond Stakes, but it was Spencer at his best, and the other side of Spencer at his best from the front, wasn't it? Yeah,
third in last year's 2,000 Guineas. Obviously, was disappointing in the Lockinge on his reappearance, but if you kept the faith, you were handsomely rewarded.
You were. The Lockinge, shall we note this now? If you look back through previous Lockinges, they've really fared well for horses that have finished midfield or worse on the next start. I don't know whether it's because the Lockinge is like a mile sprint, as proved again this year. There's Lockinges that are so deep with talented horses, being a Group 1. But this was, in hindsight, which is not great for us if you wanted to be on Royal Scotsman, a huge drop down in grade if you were able to keep the faith. And now they're Paul and Oliver Carr was thinking handy. Where can we go now? We can step back up, because this showed us this was too far down in grade, because Jamie was able to dominate the race and then just nothing got close. That was it. It was just a procession in the end, wasn't it, for Royal Scotsman? So I'm thinking mile straight.
Well, 25 to 1 with Bet365 for the Queen Anne. Will Jamie be able to resist the temptation to revert back to hold-up tactics on the straight course at Ascot?
No, I think they'll stay. I think they'll stay the same. They'll go from the front in the Queen Anne. You can certainly do that now, and the strength. I mean, you were placed in a Guineas, so, and no doubt the horses strengthen up We just don't know how quick that going was at Newbury, because didn't Elite Status break the track record? That shifted, didn't it? That absolutely shifted Elite Status. And then Audience did the same. So maybe the ground was too lively for Royal Scotsman, and then with a little bit of give Epsom, that's just shown you how quick that Royal Scotsman's can be. I don't think there'll be a problem going back on good if Royal Ascot is that, and now you've got the versatility of being, if the rain comes, which I think the forecast isn't great again, leading into the meeting. Royal Scotsman's got that versatility, and what did you say? A pony, 25s or something.
A standout with Bet365, 25 to 1 for the Queen Anne. That's a big price.
It's just a rehash of the lockage, isn't it? The Queen Anne this year.
Yeah.
In Spiral, sort of Audience, Big Rock, Charing. I mean, it's just almost like a rematch for throwing the Factor Cheval perhaps, and the Christopher horse Coudoir, who's going to step up in class. Yeah. It's maybe the horses who ran the lockage, isn't it, in the race again. He's worth a go, isn't he? In that, I think definitely 25 to 1. There's worse 25 to 1 shots. I don't think there's an outstanding older miler at the moment. No. Obviously, Audience, I think I'd be happy to take the horse on again. I think Inspiral will beat him next time they meet. I think Big Rock will beat him as well at Ascot, particularly if the ground comes in Big Rock's favour. I mean, everything went wrong for him, didn't it, in Newbury? I mean, I'm seeing sort of double-figure odds for Big Rock for the Queen Anne. I think he's one that's been written off a bit too soon for that race. Yeah,
if he gets anywhere back to his QE2 form, he'll take some beating in that. But weather dependent, and obviously trust of the new trainer.
That's it. Yeah,
that's the question mark.
Yeah, Maurizio Guarnieri, isn't it? Big job for him to get Big Rock back to his brilliant best.
Definitely. We'll then touch on a couple of the other races at Epsom. The Dash, I think we need to touch on. Tarn's Dream Composer stayed on well to beat poor old Democracy Dilemma. I imagine backers of him were already queuing up to collect their money. Yeah,
they were, and I give the deepest sympathy to those. But Dream Composer, I'm a huge fan in the fact that going into the race, I couldn't believe how long they'd taken to run Dream Composer at Epsom, because when you see Dream Composer's Goodwood form, I'm only talking comparison to Goodwood to Epsom, they're similar in the sprint tracks. He'd had 9 runs going into Goodwood, and I think he'd won twice, he'd been second once and third twice. And if you watch him on his latest run at Goodwood, you thought, oh, this would be ideal. And perhaps the Epsom calendar had never fallen right for Dream Composer as it had. He appeared to be booked for a place, whatever, if he'd run at Epsom, and he did. And unfortunately, for Democracy Dilemma, Dream Composer came through and just did him on the line. This is over 5 furlongs. If you are going to go somewhere next, and the owners are great, and I don't begrudge them at all, go into Ascot, Royal Ascot. I don't, but I'd go to the Stewards Cup and hope that you get the draw that you need because of his course specialism at Goodwood, because he's a horse that either runs up with the pace. He seems to have a second wind. If you watched him at Goodwood last time out, he hit the front and then he came again, and he had enough in the tank to come through at Epsom. The Stewards Cup, rolling down that hill, if he gets the right draw, if he's hard against either rail, good luck in trying to grab him. Yeah, he looks as if 6 furlongs should be his bag, but actually a really strong 5 furlongs is exactly what he wants. 33 to 1 with Bet365 for the Wokingham, but might struggle to get in and would probably want a bit of cut in the ground as well at the same time. He might struggle to get in, and also the fact he's suited to these downhill runs, and I think the 6 furlongs at Ascot might be a little bit stiff for him, and the draw would be a bigger issue than it would be if he ran at his beloved Goodwood. Yeah. Anthony, anything to note from the race? I thought the 4th and 5th were worth having a look at. The Bell Conductor, he's a horse who, when we were winning the Racing League, I think last year, he's a horse that's got good form on the all-weather, obviously, as well as on the turf. I think he's in the Wokingham. I think he's about 66 to 1, but probably not quite good enough to win a race. I think the Wokingham, you've got to be almost a Group 3 horse, haven't you, these days? So I don't think he's quite up to that. But look, I think he's going to win a big pot somewhere this year, the Bell Conductor. And Antiphon as well for Mike Murphy and Michael Keedy, I think was a huge price. Didn't get the best of runs either, about 2 out. So that's another horse that he's got no big entries, but I think he'll win a decent Saturday handicap soon as well, perhaps. Yeah, and Anthony, a couple of times on the show you've already mentioned Luc de Vega. I want to come back to him. Obviously won the Prix du Jockey Club, the French Derby on Sunday. Unbeaten, won by 2 lengths, and looked really impressive. Yeah, I was so impressed by him. He just looked like Ace Impact Mark II, I thought. The way he quickened. 3rd race as well. I mean, the horse has so little experience,
Massive win for the jockey, wasn't it? Winning a big Group 1 race under trainer as well. I mean, it looked a strong race, didn't it? I mean, Diego Velasquez represented Aidan. You had Ghost Writer, who brought in the 2000 Guineas form. I mean, they were very bullish about him, Clive Cox, going into the race, and he had no excuses really. But I know it was a 66-1 chance in second, but I thought this horse looked really good. I mean, to have just his third start in a race like that, and he did a lot of running as well, travelling wide for much of the race, quickened up on the outside. I mean, talking about mile and a quarter targets for him, if he went to the Eclipse, I mean, he'd give Ambiente Friendly a race, wouldn't he? I mean, there's a really exciting bunch of sort of bringing economics into the mix as well. And you've got 3 really potentially good horses over, perhaps hopefully clashing over 10 furlongs this season somewhere. Yeah,
it was a nice story. Yeah, Carlos and Jan Lerner. Jan Lerner was 20 when Christophe Soumillon steered home Anaba Blue to victory. I think Carlos was 15 at the time, led him in. And then, Ronan Thomas, 46-year-old jockey. His only other previous Derby success was in Swoop in the 2020 German Derby. So even though he was relatively short in the market, it was nice for those sort of connections to then win the big race.
It's good, isn't it, to have a different name as well? I mean, otherwise you've always got your sort of Jean-Claude Rougets and your Andre Farbes. It's great, isn't it, to have somebody else winning it. I think it was important that France won it as well. They're probably getting fed up of the visitors taking this race. So, it was good. I mean, after Race Impact last year, he was so impressive. I mean, they're talking Arc, aren't they, for Look to Vega, but, I mean, there's 1 or 2 interesting. I'd love to see him turn up at York, perhaps, for the International, or even a race like the Irish Champion Stakes as well. Whether he goes to the Eclipse, I'm not too sure. But, I think wherever he goes next, he's going to take a bit of beating.
Yeah, and the French have come over for the Irish Champion Stakes a few times in recent years. Almanzor came over, Verdane came over, didn't they? So they have targeted it. Whether these connections decide to is another question.
Well, good luck to him if they do. He's so strong. He's proved his strength out in front, because he was out in front and from a long way out. And he ran the race to adapt to himself. And then you thought in French-style racing everything will come through and swamp. And in fact, that he sort of went to the depths and kicked on again. And he's only, as Anthony said, he's only having his 3rd ever start. He's come from like oblivion to announce himself on the Group 1 stage. And when you're doing that on your 3rd ever start, how many more lengths are you going to improve from that? And how versatile can you be? Can you come from behind? But dictating it from the front like he did against some really solid performers like Ghost Writer Sunway, and Diego Velasquez, they had no answer to him. Even First Look coming through with a strong finish. It was only a strong finish to pass the remaining horses and not get near him.
Any chance for him in the Arc? 6-1 second favourite, Bet365?
Definitely a chance, but with that kind of speed, you sense more 10 furlongs, don't you? But
there is a bit of stamina in the pedigree. I mean, on the dam side, I think Lucelle was the dam. She went over 1.5 miles. She was by High Chaparral, so that screams sort of 12 furlongs. But obviously, he gets his speed from Lope de Vega. I don't know. I think he will get the 1.5 miles. And if he does, that opens up new doors as well, doesn't it? I mean, he looks like a horse that's got a massive future. Him against City of Troy would be interesting, wouldn't it, in the Arc, and throw Ezeliya into the mix as well.
Yes.
And a couple of older horses. We always build the Arc up, don't we? There's so many drop out, don't they, the sort of weeks going up to the race. So no, we've had some good Arcs in recent years, but this year's one could be even better.
Definitely. We'll then touch on anything else that we saw, obviously, over the weekend. A shout out for Persica. Andy Holding's nap last week was a good winner. Beat Rishi's nap, Portsmouth, into second that day. But we gave you the forecast on the show last week. I thought both of them were definitely horses to follow. Anything else that took your right hands?
Yeah, Derry Lad. Derry Lad.
Unlucky.
I don't want to take anything away from Bolster in that race, but Derry Lad just unlucky. And I think everyone spotted that. And it's amazing to see how that horse has progressed, because it was nicking Sunday Series races and improving and trying to go for the Sunday Series bonus. And then it had sneakily been to Epsom before in the Jump Jockeys race back in September 2022. So that caught your eye in the fact that they were coming back to Epsom again. Quite where they'll go now, because all of us have spotted Derry Lad, is a wonder. So we'll all be watching. But that was a great performance to accelerate off the back and just almost but not quite. But that's normally the perils of Epsom. they're going to be some really hard luck stories. And unfortunately, in the category in different veins, you had the likes of Derry Lad and Democracy Dilemma in the fact that they were running in different ways. That's Epsom. And then there's the horses that just didn't act like the track, like Feed the Flame. That's what comes with Epsom. And you've got to decide next time out whether you can cross that out or think, oh, this is excellent, can't wait to see them.
Yeah, a jockey on the Friday who wouldn't have been enjoying Epsom was James Doyle, who was beating a nose and a short head, but then got his big win with Ross Collin in the last. I thought was a really kind of deserved winner of that 7 furlong handicap.
Yeah, he was just beat, wasn't he, in that race earlier on, as you mentioned the card. I thought 101, same race that Tanya was talking about, Derry Lane. I thought Liberty Lane was so unlucky in that race as well. I mean, Clifford Lee's had a pretty good season, but he won't look back happily on this ride. He couldn't move. He was just. I mean, obviously, Bolster, the same ownership, was out in front, making the best of his way home, given a great ride by Pierre-Louis Jamin. But Liberty Lane caught my eye in that race massively. I think he just never got any room for like 3 furlongs. It was a typical bad... You know, Epsom, when they start to roll down the camber, and if you're in the middle, you've got horses coming in, and the one on the inside doesn't go anywhere, you're just stuck. He's just had nowhere to go. So I thought he was unlucky. Another horse who he's become my cliff horse is Due for Luck, who's well named because he never gets any luck.
No,
I fancied him
get
Chester,
luck.
luckless there, and again the same in the dash, which was kind of half expecting it to happen almost. Watching, you think this is going to happen again, and it did. But he'll win a good 3-year-old sprint handicap somewhere. Hopefully, if he ever gets any luck, Due for Luck might win a big one.
Yeah, and away from Epsom, I thought Jabara was good in the listed Queen of Scots Filly Stakes. Won by 2 lengths at Musselburgh. I thought that was a nice performance. Anything else before we finish race and recap?
No, I mean, as I mentioned, I just thought Glimpsed is my horse to follow outside of the big Group 1s. But it's a distance issue with her rather than as much as she was unlucky. She was unlucky because she was running over a trip too short for her. Yeah.
I thought away from Epsom, Friday night was a really good novice race at Doncaster on the evening card. So many pedigrees in there, so many Kingmans in there, so many Frankles. Indelible won the race. She's one to look out for. Filly taking on the boy. She's trained by Rafe Beckett. Not many Shamadows left around, sadly, but she's Shamadow out of midday. I mean, the breeding is impeccable for Juddmonte. Yeah. And she beat a horse called Amphius and a horse called Sword, who's a Kingman for John and Thady Gosden. So I think look back at that Doncaster race Friday night. That's going to throw up a lot of winners, but Indelible, the winner of that race, she could be very good for Rafe Beckett.
Excellent. A couple to note then for listeners for your tracker, and that brings to an end Race and Recap. Before we get into our weekend preview, just to let you know that our sponsor Bet365 have a best odds guaranteed offer. It's available on every single UK and Irish race from 8 AM on the day of the race. If you take a price and the SP is bigger, Bet365 will pay you out at the bigger odds. Full terms and conditions can be found on the website. So we've got some good action at Haydock this coming Saturday. The John O'Gaunt Stakes is arguably the highlight of the card. Group 3 run over 7 furlongs at 3:35. Currently 4-1 the field with Bet365. You've got Noble Dynasty, 4-1, beat the impressive subsequent winner English Oak at Newmarket last time. Witch Hunter, coming from that Lockinge. You have Easy, who's a fascinating contender, has a couple of entries over the weekend. Flight Plan, again, well beaten in the Lockinge, and then Tiberflow, who obviously clipped heels. Tarns, who have you got your eye on in the John O'Gaunt Stakes?
Who have we got? Well, Witch Hunter, but then it's kind of more of a weather watch with Witch Hunter. This is a specialist distance and a great specialist distance as well, because you can tease yourself with the 6 furlong horses to bring up to the 7 furlongs. Witch Hunter's already proved by winning the Hungerford Stakes last season and ran an absolute belter in the Lockinge, as you've just mentioned. You had Audience and Sharon out in the middle of the track, and Witch Hunter, who was in splendid isolation near Standside and was the one that came through on the Standside. So it seemed an automatic progression to come to Haydock. I was expecting might have turned up at Epsom, but come to Haydock, and it's just got the speed. But then we've got some really, really intriguing entries. You mentioned we don't know where Easy is going. And she's going to be a little... If you haven't seen Easy yet, have a look on the replays and just to see how she travels into races. It's really a sight to behold. Tiberflow, how on earth did Tiberflow get up? It's just wonderful that he has, and coming into this contest, he ran brilliantly in the Abernant Stakes, and then obviously air happen. But he has the ability to be a big player in this race in the early stages. You've got the old looking up and down. You've got your old friends that have run in this race before, the likes of Pogo. He's going to be in here. Point Linus would be an interesting contender because I think Northern Express thought it was eventually going to get past at York. You have to be some kind of a specialist, though, at Haydock. Point Linus, it's a good way to start off to go into group company in this stage. But I just think his style of running, he's going to find this tricky. I would love to see, and this is, don't groan everyone, I'd love to see Bless Him. I mean, I think Witch Hunter is my selection, but each way as well, Bless Him, only because how well Bless Him ran in the Victoria Cup. Obviously, Ascot is his specialised subject, but why not come to this race where there's going to be plenty of speed? If Jamie's on board, he can do a sit-in behind. They cannot go fast enough early for Bless Him. Bless Him was brilliant. He was only just in a three-way photo picked up by the Wizard of Eye in the Victoria Cup. And he's 10 years young, but he's wise to the fact. And as I mentioned, at this wonderful 10 years young, they can't go fast enough. So if they are going to fly out in front, he will be a huge value. I'm looking, is he about 20 to 1 each way? You'd expect there'll be no sort of fears running him so soon. And you'll see him again at Ascot. He's one of the wonderful sorts. We've mentioned Noble Dynasty. He's effective over 7 furlongs. I just think he might be a bit vulnerable to the strength of a Witch Hunter who comes in here with really, really good Lockinge form. His Noble Dynasty's not gone to that Group 1 well, whereas Witch Hunter has been to the Group 1 well and kept up pace with them. But bless him. For a play, don't laugh.
For the sentimental.
Well, no, I mean, it's not as if he didn't run bad last time.
No, definitely not.
No, he ran brilliantly, and Jamie's on form, and Jamie will be on him.
Yeah, stepping back up from a handicap into this Group 3 contest. Anthony, who for you?
I'm going to go with Flight Plan. I was hoping for a bit big. I think it's 7 to 1. It's a bit better 365.
Yeah.
I thought, well, if I get double figure odds, Flight Plan, he'd be my play, but I'm not going to get that. He's by Night of Thunder, so I mean, good to soft ground is fine. I'm looking at the weather report for Haydock. It's got the rain cloud picture on every day, isn't it? Building up on Saturday, including Saturday as well. So you're thinking, is it going to turn even almost bordering heavy on Saturday if this rain arrives? I think it's certainly on the soft side. But look, he goes okay and good to soft. He was obviously behind Witch Hunter, wasn't he, in the lock-in, so a bit to find on that. But I think they kind of eased him off once his chance had gone, so I wouldn't literally read that form. But I mean, Witch Hunter's the form horse in the race, surely. Third in the lock-in, finished ahead of horses like Big Rock and Inspiral. I mean, put either of those in this race and they're long odds on. So Witch Hunter's the form pick is the obvious one. But I've got a feeling that Flight Plan might run better than he did at Newbury and give Carl Burke a good spin there. I think Flight Plan might be the value play still.
Yeah, at 7 to 1.
If the weather does come really bad, and I think you'll all agree with me, we'll see your Simpty Valley turn up for Donica, who's entered in the race. But if the weather doesn't come, your Simpty Valley won't be there. It just desperately needs the soft. And then you'll see the market change a little bit, but that doesn't detract at all for Witch Hunter for me. But I'd be a little bit more wary.
Connections aren't afraid to take him out if the conditions don't suit as well. So I guess on my Valley. Currently 8 to 1 with Bet365 for that race. Anthony, I'll come to you for the Achilles Stakes listed race over 5 furlongs. Could see last year's Nunthorpe winner Living the Dream. He's currently 6 to 4 favourite with Bet365. Believing, you have to forgive his last effort in Hong Kong, but obviously outran odds of 66 to 1, finished third in the Sprint Cup here. So he has that Haydock form. Yeah,
George Burroughs always rated that horse very highly, Believing, as you said, she ran all right in Hong Kong. It was a tough ask, wasn't it, to go out there and win that race. So that was good form. It depends if Living the Dream is even 95% back to his best, he'll win this, won't he? Surely on his Nunthorpe form. He ran a great race over at the Breeders' Cup as well. I mean, they're going to try and get out there again this year. The horse that Tanya mentioned, Easy's in this race as well. Depends. Be interesting to see when that horse turns up, because very likely race profile. Then you're sort of looking down at horses like Corker and Equilateral, probably aren't quite up to sort of top level. I mean, living the dream. He's a genuine Group 1 horse, isn't he? In sort of a slightly lesser class race, so he'd have to be. If you're asking me who's the likely winner, Steve, I'd have to say living the dream. Even at 6-4, I think it might be a fair price actually Saturday.
Yeah, it was an encouraging comeback. It drifted markedly on the day. I think it out to about 8-1, but yeah, definitely exceeded their expectations. Going back to Easy, it is well worth watching. Like Andrew Slattery filly returned from 567 days off the track. All I would say is she's been a non-runner on good ground, but as Anthony says with the weather forecast, I don't think it is going to be good ground.
No, and she's quite big as well, so perhaps that's a. I mean, her form, the Cork listed race was on heavy, but on one of the early races that she's only had 3 races. I think it's the first race she won. Goodness me. It was almost as if the commentator, like Anthony, was sort of sitting and waiting with Easy and knew Easy was there, and then every time there was a mention for Easy because it was just sat like that. Then ran over a little bit too far and then dropped back in trip. Oh, hello, heavy ground, but another one on Weather Watch, Easy. And then they're deciding what way to go. Will they tackle on the Group 1 performer and live the dream, or will they go up to 7 furlongs? We'll see. I'd prefer to tackle live in the dream. We've got to give a shout out into the race at Equilateral, who's come back to the race again. He's been placed in the race before, and no doubt, Litbike, bless him, Equilateral's running 5 straight Royal Ascots, each of them being Group 1s. So this is more than anything. He's more than capable of winning the race, but expect to see him turn up at Ascot again. Believing, as you flagged up, is the ultimate second favourite in the race because he's been on Grade 1 travels, I should say, Grade 1 travels, and drops back down into this grade. But they must have been doing cartwheels after that first run back in the Temple State. It was just a brilliant run, wasn't it? They went out in front, and you're waiting for Live the Dream to fade on its first return back, and it didn't. It just took Curtis to go by, and it still managed to maintain the run through the line. So Live the Dream is the correct favourite. As you said, Anthony, it might be too big at this stage, knowing that it's going to turn up, but I would be very worried because we just don't know the level of the ceiling of the ability of Easy. It's just but it might be a step too far for her right now, but we'll see.
Yeah. I thought Equilateral was quite a big price at 10-1, to be honest. We saw kind of a Jamie Spencer special the weekend before last on Mick Bahi, and I was kind of hoping that it'd do the same here. Only ran twice at Haydock in his career. First was a length second in the Temple Stakes last season, and then the other was second behind Regional in this race last season. Obviously, Regional's gone on to boost that form. It was disappointing on his return, but he was way too keen over 6 furlongs. 5 furlongs is definitely what he wants. I thought 10-1 was quite a big price with Bet365 for that.
Yeah, I'm keeping my eye for Royal Ascot. I think he might be interested in the Wokingham if he goes to that race. I think Charlie Hill's always and Jamie Spencer always have a big price winner, don't they, at Ascot? And I wonder if he could be the one this year. Just one other thing about Haydock, though, I do notice it's a 3-day meeting, remember, this week as well. Yeah. So obviously, whether they'll keep a strip of ground fresh for Saturday or use the other's course, I don't know, the inner line. It could be interesting, couldn't it? Because if they race there Thursday and it does get soft or heavy, I mean, the track could be really churned up by Saturday, couldn't it? So obviously that's worth keeping an eye on as well.
Yeah, definitely. We'll then move on to the Leicester Piggott Pinnacle Fillies Stakes. It's a Group 3 over 1.5 miles. This is a wide open contest, currently 9-2 the field with Bet365. Sapphire Seas won at the course last season, heads to the market at 9-2. Queen of the Pride is 5-1. Brilliantly bred. Roaring Lion out of Simple Verse, finished second at Goodwood on her return. Lady Boba is 6-1. It's well worth watching her last run at Fontainebleau. Wide margin winner, was really impressive. Should make her reappearance in this race. And then you've got the likes of Sea Theme and Madam Ambassador at bigger prices. Tarns, who's you liking this?
Queen of Pride, I didn't think liked Goodwood too much. I think came into the race and then found the course a little bit tricky to deal with. And that said, though, ran on so well. So coming here to Haydock is going to be a gift, and John and Sadie Gosden have a good record in this particular race. John, anyway. So Queen of the Pride has got to have major contender. Lady Balboa, as you mentioned, the Fontainebleau run, the Newmarket run wasn't that bad either, coming into the race where perhaps the ground or the way the race, the dynamic of the race sort of set itself out. Night Sparkle is a lovely sort. Had a very, very busy season last season. I think it was 8 races, 7 for Michael O'Callaghan, then came to Andrew Boarding, and ran really well this season. when second, if you remember, the Bronte Cup with Rachel Blackmore won the race and Night Sparkle was the horse in second. So they sort of came across the course. So Night Sparkle is going to come on from that Bronte Cup run. And so we know that Night Sparkle likes these kind of tracks. Madam Ambassador is a great yardstick because you know what kind of rating. It's been gradually improving. Brilliant one, training by Charlie Johnson, gradually improving 2 each time in the performance. So you can imagine that she's going to run up to about 100 or 101. She's so dependable. Another nice horse is Sea Theme. Coming into the race, that's been building up nicely, and William Haggis has done well in this race. I'm going to go with Night Sparkle because that Bronte Cup run, and I was just a little bit worried by Sapphire Seas at the top of the market. It's so wide open though. Look at it. even as I said, Weather Watch, Thunder Roll has got a good chance in this race, but Thunder Roll probably won't run because of the grounds. But look out for Thunder Roll last time. As I said, I'm going to go Night Sparkle because of that run at York last time.
Currently available 6 to 1 with Bet365. Anthony, who for you?
I've got 2 soft ground horses on my side here. I've sort of predicted it is going to be soft, which I think it will be. Lady Boba's the one I really like. That Fontainebleau win was impressive. It was very soft officially that day, and she won on Foss Last soft as well. I think as a 2-year-old. You know how soft it gets there. She was beaten by Madame Ambassador, wasn't she, in another race at I think Newmarket last year. But yeah, Lady Boba's the one I like for Rafe Beckett. We know how good he is with these fillies as well. He just has so many good fillies in his stable. The danger, I think, might be the Gosden runner, Queen of the Pride. Ran really well at Goodwood, just got outpointed by Gather Rosebuds that day. But yeah, that was a good run. I think the ground was soft there as well. So she's another one that goes on the soft. She's a roaring lion, well named, of course, Queen of the Pride. But yeah, she'd be my second pick. But Lady Boba, what is she, 6 to 1 with the sponsors? I think that's good enough for me. Yeah,
I was really taken with her. I thought the fact that Connections gave up a rating of 82 in order to win that race at Fontainebleau kind of said it all, really. She's now rated 99, so handicap days are well over. She was getting a stone from Madame Ambassador the day that Madame Ambassador beat her. But I think this step up in trip to 1.5 miles will definitely suit her. So, yeah, Lady Boba was also my selection in the race at around 6 to 1. Tans, anything else for you, either at Haydock or Bet365? Obviously, have a sponsored card at Beverley as well. You've got a conditions race. Hillary Needler is in there as well.
No, that's always, I tell you what you do with Beverley is just get the notebooks at the ready. The Hillary Needler and all the races around it has proved to be excellent in time. Looking there at Brazilian Belle in the Hillary Needler over the 5 furlongs. Obviously, people will be pouncing on the draw for Beverley, but we've got a weather watch, so I sense that it's going to be a little bit soft there. Anything else? I'm going to Goodwood. Forgive me. I'm going to go to Goodwood on Sunday in the hope that See Just in Time will be turning out. Was very exciting at Newmarket. It's a race that's thrown up in the past Sea of Class and Speedy Boarding, and maybe Connections feel this is the ideal target for See Just in Time, so I'll be looking at Goodwood. But as you say, Beverley's always a great meeting on this day.
Yeah, another one to note at Goodwood, I spotted in the opener on Sunday, Ross Collin, he's entered.
Is he?
In the weaker 0 to 95 7 furlong handicap, obviously a weaker race than he won at Epsom on the Friday. Now, he has backed up quickly in his career previously, but whether they turn him around this quickly is another thing. Goodwood has just got such a good record at 4 wins, 3 places from 9 appearances. So if he was to take his chance in the opener on Sunday at Goodwood, yeah, he'd be a strong selection for me. Anything else for you?
I was looking at the Hillary Needler. The first and second from that Thirsk race. If you go back to watch that race in mid-May when Moore Lamb won the race, I think, for Adrian Nichols. You wouldn't associate Adrian Nichols, would you, having first-time out winners? And she was impressive. Mademoiselle, I think, was in second place that day. The Ammo Racing horse. They're both entered up for the race. But I quite like a horse who's won on the all-weather. Aviation Time for Hillary Needler. Bit of a different test, isn't it? Kempton to Beverley, completely different. She really hit the line strong, though, that day. Richard Hughes trains. It's those Bronte collection colours, those silver and gold silks. I think James Dawley's penciled in as well to ride. So, yeah, Aviation Time might be an interesting one at a price, but More Lamb, I think, is probably going to be favourite for that Hillary Needler.
Yeah, and a couple more on that Bet365 Beverley card. In the 2-year-old conditions race, all the money has been for the Wathnan Racing debutant Fortification for James Doyle and Carl Burke, now into 2 to 1 favourite with Bet365 at the time of recording. Will be a really good performance to beat moving forward. So I was really impressed with Impressive debut winner for Richard Fahey. And then in the Bet365 handicap at 3:15 on Saturday over 7.5 furlongs, the anti-post favourite is currently powdering for Michael Harrington.
Just keeps winning. I call that horse
my
when
goodness.
won at Newmarket a couple of runs ago and won again since.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Has a brilliant form, completed a hat-trick of wins. 2 of those have come at Beverley over this course and distance. Now, the thing to note is she has been declared for a race at Kempton tomorrow, being Wednesday. So keep an eye on if they pull her out and decide to come to Beverley instead. But current
Looks like
favourite.
a proper Saturday horse now, doesn't she? She's made that sort of step up from being this kind of a midweek average handicapper to being a Saturday horse. It's great for Mick Harrington, isn't it? He does all his own driving, he parades the horses himself, does so much work. He's one of the hardest working trainers. For him to have a horse like this is great.
And he's unbelievable form as well. I think he's over a 50% strike rate in the last couple of weeks as well. So.
5 from 9. He's just phenomenal, isn't he? He had that Soames Forsyth win. It's just recently. Oh, they're all winning. Fair play to him. Good luck to Powdering.
Yeah, definitely. Right, we'll be back shortly for our best bets of the weekend. Before we get into our best bets of the weekend, just to let you know of a free-to-play 6 horses challenge. It is available every weekend with prize pools available for 5 and 4 correct predictions, as well as a jackpot for all 6. Terms and conditions apply. Anthony, as it's your debut on the show, I'm going to come to you first for your best bet of the weekend, please.
I'm going to go with Flight Plan, the John O'Gaunt Stakes. I know it's a big ask, big step up needed for the Lockinge when he was well beaten, but I think the ground might be in his favour. He's by Night of Thunder. He showed progressive form last year. I think he can reverse the Lockinge form with Witch Hunter. Carl Butt really rates his horse highly. I think Flight Plan could be interesting with Danny Tadhope on around 7-1, I think, for the John O'Gaunt Stakes. He'll do for me.
Excellent. Tans?
Well, I'm going to avoid the John O'Gaunt Stakes. Instead, I'm going to go to the Achilles. I'm going to be bold, and although fair play to Living the Dream, and hopefully Easy's going to turn up in the Achilles Stakes, and she'll be a fair each way price. She's going to travel so well, and just as a saver, I might do a forecast Live the Dream to beat Easy, but it's going to be a fantastic race.
Yeah, Easy currently 6-1 with Bet365 at the time of recording. I'm going to go with Pogo. I'm going to go against Anthony in the John O'Gaunt Stakes. Already jocked up under regular rider Kieran Schumark. It's well known that he's a 7-furlong specialist, but he's actually got good form at Haydock as well. Has run at Haydock twice in his career. First was a victory in this race in 2022 by a nose, and then was a second-placed effort a month ago behind Shartash in a listed race here, where he had Witch Hunter a further 2.5 lengths behind off level weights. Witch Hunter is 5-1 in this race. Pogo is 10-1 in this race. So, I think it's a cracking each way bet. So, Pogo for me in the John O'Gaunt Stakes. Thank you very much for joining us on Racing Weekly this week, brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. Many thanks to both Anthony and Tanya for joining me this week. As always, if you like what you've watched or heard on this or any of our previous episodes, then please leave us a kind review on Apple Podcasts or in the comment section on YouTube. Rishi and I will be back next Friday rather than Tuesday for our Royal Ascot preview, where we'll be joined by Lydia Hislop. Thank you very much.